One, it's the Reviewanew podcast with DJ and Evan.
Yeah.
back in the saddle, as my co-host said a couple of moments ago. Ready to talk some more about some movies, and we started off with Kevin Smith, who went to the Wayans brothers, to talk about them, and now we're on to a new legacy, onto a new pioneer in comedy. One would say a one Mr. Sacha Baron Cohen, and this is an artist that I do believe you have a history with, which is one of the reasons, the unexpected reasons why I chose to do it, because I was like, oh yeah, that's someone that I kind of was into when I was a kid, and then I remember having a conversation with you and just being like, what? You really are into this person too? So let's kick it off with your relation to this artist.
Yeah, I mean, I like Sacha Baron Cohen a lot. I don't always like everything he does, but
and that's what this is all about.
But I have a lot of respect for him. I need to finish watching that Netflix series he's in.
America?
No. The he's playing. It's something about the origins of Israel, actually.
Oh,
and
wow.
he's playing. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I like him a lot, and I think he's very funny. Although I don't always love all of everything he does, but yeah, and I will just say that I'm not even going to bother with a thirst corner. The whole thing would be given over to thirst corner. But yeah, no, I've got a lot of admiration for him. I mean, obviously, I saw Borat when it came out, and like everybody else, just pretty much had it memorized in high school.
Man, but this movie, the Borat movie when it came out, it was this thing where it was I remember someone talking about, oh hey, there's Borat sightings of this guy, and everyone just being like, who's this vaguely Middle Eastern looking guy? It's supposed to be some guy is supposed to be commentary on what's going on, because I heard it's a comedy show, and then it was so quick where it was I heard vague rumors of this character, and then it was this movie, and then my friend told me to watch the show, and then it was I'd watched the show on HBO, and it was just holy shit, this is such an explosive concept that no one had ever done. It had been doing it so much better than anyone else I had seen doing the reality but comedy format of a Jackass or Michael Moore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I'm sorry, this is completely unrelated to Sacha Baron Cohen. I'm trying so hard not to crack up at Donut. Donut is our other roommate's cat, who is sitting in his lap, and he's stroking her like a supervillain. And this cat...
While talking about his background.
This is a magnificent cat. She is a gigantic, ancient tuxedo cat with 2-inch fangs and a 3-inch tongue that is constantly hanging out of her mouth. And she was just sort of scratching herself and had one side of her hair sticking up. And Donut has a cannon voice, and it sounds like this. So she's sitting here going, I'm just, don't mind me. I'm just listening to you guys.
There's a word for that, for when you do the voice of your pet, but I can't remember what it was.
I don't know, but that's, Donut has a cannon voice, and she's sitting here blepping at the microphone and looking concerned.
She just happened to be here, as I was setting up things an hour or so ago, and she was just already in my room as I came back, and then she just never left. So I was like, all right, I guess she's just here now.
She's a lap cat. She's just very funny and distracting.
Her purring.
Yeah, she's very purry. So anyway, sorry. I back to Sacha Baron Cohen.
All right, back. We're back in the saddle.
Yes,
with our deviations about our cats.
Yeah.
I was actually trying to figure out how we would technically talk about this and how we'd go about it, because first of all, just because it's not a movie like we typically do, but also because you had apparently not watched the first season or something like that.
Well, okay, so let me ask you, what you watched, was that in widescreen with was it in a wider screen format? And it was in Britain, and there was a segment on this big stage where he had there was a big stage and there was girls dancing around, and were the guests mostly British or were they mostly American?
They were mostly American, but
did you see the chicken guy, the chicken farmer?
the guy who's like, I'm a veterinarian.
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, we watched the same season.
Okay.
So we both.
Well, because I thought it was like season 1 is the first 6 episodes.
Right.
So
no, it's actually season 3, but it is mislabeled on a particular platform as season 1. So okay, so the Ali G show. So Ali G is the character originated on a Channel 4, which is this British comedy, like that's where the Mighty Boosh aired. It originated on this Channel 4 show called the 11 O'Clock Show, and then he got his own show with it in the late 90s. So the Ali G show started out on Channel 4. It was on Channel 4 in Britain for 1 season. And then the next 2 seasons were on HBO, and they were filmed in America. And there were a couple segments, so I ended up watching then a little bit of season 1, the actual season 1, and there are a couple segments where he is in America, or at least talking to Americans, but it's mostly in Britain. And oddly enough, the production quality on season 1 seems a lot higher than the other 2, and all I can think is that possibly they just used up a lot of the budget on him being in America.
No, yeah, like I remember just personally, first of all, just getting into the show just because like initially the ridiculousness of that Ali G character and like wearing the, just to tell the shame the devil, he was wearing Wu-Tang clothes and I like Wu-Tang Clan, so
that like, just immediately caught your eye.
Exactly, it was just like, oh snap, hey, he's a Wu-Tang Clan.
I remember I wasn't super familiar with the Ali G show. I watched a few sketches on and off in college because I remember seeing a few sketches when I was in college, but I was a lot more familiar with Borat from the movie, and then I didn't see Bruno until like a year or 2 ago, I think. I remember seeing Bruno very recently.
Our family was still so swept up in Borat fever that we were like, all right, we'll check out we got to see what he does next,
Yeah, I mean, and I will say, even though Ali G, I feel like, people are aware of the Ali G show, but Borat was the one that,
the breakout star.
Because he had Ali G into House, the movie, come out before Borat.
Yeah, and we should talk about that too, because I saw that.
Yeah, I have not seen that yet, but Borat was the one that really, really, really took off and kind of launched him in a big way. And then Bruno, I think, because it came after Borat, people were paying a little bit more attention because it was, oh, well, that's the guy who did Borat. So Ali G is, even though he's the kind of central character in the show that started all of it, I feel like a little bit lesser known, at least to Americans.
Yeah.
But I find him the easiest to watch of all of the 3. So the show, for anybody who hasn't seen it, if you haven't seen it, I don't know why you're listening to this, but if you're listening to this and you haven't watched any of the Ali G show, there are 3 characters that Sacha Baron Cohen plays, and the show's divided up into segments featuring each one. So there's Ali G, who's the main character, who's this chav who is canonically white, but like constantly he'll say stuff like, is it because I'm black? And
he speaks in a Jamaican patois, and it's this like this British wigger in this way that I always thought was immediately interesting, because it was like, from my angle in America, it was always like, okay, we see how the white guy who's acting black acts. But it was kind of like a culture shock for me. It's like, because in Britain, there's a specific Jamaican influence that happens over there. And so it's like, oh, if there would be a British dude acting black over there, there would be more of that element into it. Yeah. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, of like how the shades of that sort of like, cultural, like, appropriation sort of works. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's that sort of like, oh yeah, I talk with the British accent, but it's very clearly like influenced by this like Jamaican patois thing. But there's the obvious joke of like, no, this guy isn't really like this, and actually the joke is on these type of people who try to like pretend to be black.
I think this was on season 3. I think it was on this one where did you see him talking to Andy Rooney?
Yes, I did. Oh
God! And so he's like,
because it was the very last thing,
and I felt bad for, like, I will say part of the reason that
you kind of feel bad for?
Yeah. So, well, no, I didn't feel bad for Andy Rooney. I felt bad for Ali G. Because what I will say is, like, Ali G of the three characters, Borat is obviously a horrendous person. Borat is just disgusting. He's just a horrible person.
Yeah.
And Bruno's a pretty awful person also. But Ali G, despite, like, once in a while he'll say something that's like, oh, but he seems like generally very sweet and like his heart.
The guy who's trying to understand,
right?
But because he was raised in a place that was like maybe wasn't really like pressing the idea of being progressive. Like he's still new to the idea, so maybe he's still using the language.
Ali G is like he's like that. I think it was a Patton Oswalt joke where he was talking about how you can have somebody using very sort of enlightened sounding language and being very bigoted, and you can have some redneck going like, I don't care what them queers do, they can get married, like, and Ali G is kind of that where he's like, I don't want to offend any gay lords who are watching.
Because specifically the slang that there is in Britain for like these derogatory
terms. Everyone
gay
lords, lesers,
and it threw me off because it's like it was exactly to your point when you said it's like he's trying, but like that's what he thinks.
But his whole thing is that he's very sweet, and his whole like the joke in all of Borat's sketches are that he's being horrifically offensive and seeing how far he can push it, or even getting people to agree. Bruno's whole joke, and Bruno's my least favorite because Bruno's whole thing is being
my least favorite. Yeah.
Bruno's whole thing is being this over the top, sexually aggressive, offensive gay stereotype, and whereas like Borat basically is racist and misogynistic and gets people to go along with that and expose themselves. But Bruno, just his whole thing seems to be like, I'm going to be really gay and hit on these straight guys and make them mad. And it's like, but they're not wrong to be angry that you're being really sexually aggressive with them. So it's not like you're...
That one does work the least because of that. Exactly.
Right, because I feel like the idea there was like, exposing homophobes or something. But it was like, it's really just like, no. If you're like grinding on a guy without his permission, that's...
Now, there was one or two, like, at the end of an episode where it would be like, okay, that guy is probably, like, really homophobic. But it's one of those things where it's like, I don't talk about the gay people. They're not around me. I don't know who they are.
I mean, there are genuine homophobes, but it's kind of, it just muddies the waters because of the way that he comports himself in that role.
Yeah, like, as someone who's already being aggressive towards, the person.
But Ali G, Ali G is kind of for me, the most watchable, because I'll admit, and it sounds weird because I really like Sacha Baron Cohen, but I'm generally not super into cringe humor. And Ali G is kind of the least cringy because he's sweet, and his whole thing is he's just dumb, and he makes these sort of, Amelia Bedelia-esque jokes of like, the like, why you can blame the euthanasia for killing people, like
So basically, as I was writing my notes, I was like, this show is basically the social issue version of Jackass, where the experiment is about giving people the opportunity to be racist or hateful by by having this foreign character who is like, oh, my culture is different and we do this, and saying the thing that's offensive.
Well, they're like the gated community sketch. Have you seen? Oh my god! So yeah, we'll talk about that.
But what I wanted to say to your other point of like Ali G and how he's like, one guy's like, I do homeopathic medicine. One of the guys he's interviewing, and he's going like, he says like, when people are sick, we figure out how to cure them. And he's like, I think it's wrong to say that them people is, it's wrong to say that gay lords are sick, man. They just have a different way of life of living than us, he's joking on the play on words, but like the joke is that like he actually is trying to be nice. He's just an idiot.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of enjoy Ali G the most, because it's it's just kind of sweet and silly, and even though he talks to some people who, in my opinion, are pretty bad people.
Yeah, it is one of those things, like, as soon as you see their name, you're just like, oh, that person?
But he also talks to people like a chicken farmer, and, and it's just sort of sweet and enjoyable in that way, and, and whereas Borat's much more like, and I enjoy Borat. Well, I won't say I enjoy, like I find Borat,
get more out of Borat.
Yeah, maybe? Like he's got more substance. Like those segments have more substance to them, but it's also like I'm just sort of cringing through the entire Borat sketch. So the gated community one, and I feel like I literally said, a couple days ago, and this is my hot take, that I think gated communities,
flame on.
Gated communities should be illegal, because I just think it's fucked up that a bunch of rich white people can like put a fence around a neighborhood and be like, this is ours.
You can't just be here.
And so, and the gated community, there's a sketch where Borat is talking to this real estate agent trying to buy a house in a gated community, and he just straight up says, and you know, by the way, the camera guy is like, this is not hidden camera. There's a camera guy.
Some of the stuff does surprise you. You're like,
very clearly, right? Like some of these people, or like there was a guy who owns a nightclub in Miami who. This was a Bruno sketch, and he was like, so what do you do when someone comes up with a wheelchair? And he's just like, oh, you know, we just ignore them and try to hope they don't come in. You just said that on camera. Not hit. Whoa. But so Borat's talking to this real estate agent, and he goes, my wife, she's scared of the chocolate face, you know, and the real estate agent just, you know, is like, oh, well, you know, if there were any here, they'd be, you know, not like the rest of them. And, and it was just like, do you realize you're being filmed? Like,
and it's one of those things where
like you're saying the quiet part out loud.
But it's the weird thing, which is like, do you realize what you're saying? Like, because it seems like this is like, no, those type of violent people wouldn't be here. But it's using that wording where it's like the sort of plausible deniability of, well, we're just saying unsafe people wouldn't be here, but you know what we mean when we say it like that.
Or,
that sort of thing, you know?
And I think a lot of what the Borat sketches exposes are not necessarily, and I feel like one thing that Sacha Baron Cohen said in an interview about the whole Borat shtick is, he said what it exposes is that a lot of time racism is a result of just sort of dumb, lazy conformity as much as frothing hatred. And I feel like you see that so much, or not always even conformity, but just sort of unexamined, you know, like
unexamined bias.
Like the wine tasting, there's a wine tasting sketch where Borat's tasting wine, and of course there's all these old white guys, and the waiter is black, and he comes up and serves the wine and then walks away, and Borat says something about, oh, that's your slave, and the guy's like, no, we don't have slaves anymore, and that's and Borat says something, he kind of goads him into saying, well, that's good for them, it's not good for you. And the guy was just like, yeah, I guess it's not good for us, and it was just like, and you could tell that this isn't something that he's thought about. And and I think that kind of thing is really important to be aware of, because so often our popular culture treats racism and sexism and homophobia and other kinds of bigotry as if they only count when it's somebody who's just this like frothing, rabid, hateful Klansman type who wants to like murder everybody. And it's like, no, I mean, there are so many people who have bigotry.
That's just the obvious version of that.
That, you know, they're not hateful. Like that, I'm sure that guy doesn't hate that waiter.
They grew up in a place where this was normalized, and so it's like, oh, I guess these people are,
and being able to say, hey, this is here, and it doesn't mean that you're some kind of horrible, inhuman monster, but it means that this is not okay, and we need to be aware of it and think about it, instead of just going, well, they're not a horrible, inhuman monster, and therefore it doesn't count.
Yeah, and the way I think about it is, like, I don't try to think about watching the show in terms of that individual is bad. I try to think of it in terms of, like, oh yeah, in an environment where someone is in front of someone that's allowing them to, like, you know, expose their bias, that is showing how this is, like you said, within, like, you know, our culture and within people. And, like, so, yeah, like, as I watch the show, I don't think, oh, look at that person that is a jackass. I think of, like, oh, yeah, this is what can happen when someone pokes at that. You know
because
what I mean?
Most of the people on the show are nobodies. Like, most of the people on the show are just randos, and it would be pointless to be like, here's this random bad individual. And even when the person is somewhat more prominent. So I want to talk about actually the Broadwater. I think James Broadwater. I might be getting
yes.
Yeah. So there's a Republican. I think I'm probably getting all the details wrong. He's running for office in Mississippi, I want to say, and Borat's going around campaigning with him. And he's asking him about religion, and he says, you know, I'm Christian, and he's asking him, and basically pushes him into saying that Jews will all go to hell for not being Christian.
Oh my God, it was one of those moments where it's just like, I paused, I was like, did that just say what I think it just said?
You know, and the thing is, it's like, that, like, okay, yes, here's this individual. He's not running for president. He's not important, really. And even though he is somewhat more prominent being a politician running for office, the point is this attitude is common. And I think, and one thing I will say is, like, also, I'm of too much. So, like, Dan.
The specific question is, like, would they go to heaven or hell? And he says, I would say they'd have to go to hell. Like, that's how he says it.
And Dan Savage, the sex advice columnist who is gay, he actually changed his tune on this, because he used to say, like, I don't care if you think I'm going to hell. I don't believe in hell, so it doesn't hurt me. Whatever, I don't care. But then he started thinking about it differently, and he said, I don't believe in hell. I'm not scared I'm going to go to hell. But if you're telling your kids I'm going to hell,
it's indicative of a mindset, right?
It's training them to think I'm evil for being gay. And as a Jew, I don't believe in hell. I don't believe in the Christian idea of hell. But, so I'm not, like, theologically scared of that. But it also, if people are going around saying Jews are going to hell, which, even the Pope has said, like, of course, these people aren't Catholic generally, but, if you're going around saying Jews are going to hell, like, it doesn't matter if Jews don't believe in hell. You're still basically saying, no matter how much I'm going to act like I respect you and like you, I still believe in my heart of hearts that you're going to be tormented for all eternity.
It is normalized that these people are less than human because they will be punished.
Right, and I read a follow-up that actually kind of made my blood boil, in that this guy posted on his website, I think on his campaign website after the episode came out, he was like, basically ranting and railing about how the Ali G show needed to be taken off the air. And then he says, I'm a friend to Israel. And that pissed me off so fucking much. Not because, like, I'm not going to even get into my politics here, because I really fucking hate when people automatically think because you're Jewish, you need to, like, be grilled on your position on Israel. But regardless, the point is, Israel is a country. Israel is a country. Israel contains many Jews, but not all the Jews. Far from, and what really pisses me off is when a certain type of quote unquote Christian right politician, and this is, you see this from politicians a lot, or from people on the quote unquote Christian right, and when they say stuff about Israel as a deflection against anti-Semitism, because Israel is a country that many American Republicans like for all kinds of reasons that have nothing to do with Jews, and there are some
political
but there are also some Christians who like it on a theological basis that's really disturbing.
And it informs their politics.
And I'm going to take a moment to say hashtag not all Christians. My mother.
No, but like I've been looking up about it recently. It was like it's disgusting.
Right. So like again, hashtag not all Christians. My mother is a Christian. She does not think this, but there are many Christians who love Israel and want all the Jews to get back to Israel so that then the apocalypse can happen.
Yeah, and it's like...
And because as part of, like, end times prophecies. And the hypocrisy, the galling hypocrisy to meet the charge of, hey, you said Jews are all going to hell with, I'm a friend to Israel. It's like, okay, so you like this country that exists on the other side of the world.
I like the thing that I can use for the end times
right,
thing.
And that may either be for political reasons that have nothing to do with religion, or it may be for you want all the Jews to go there so that the end times can happen and then all the Jews can go to hell. Or it may be a combination. But regardless, like, that fucking deflection of, like, you didn't say, I don't think Jews are going to burn in hell and be tormented for all eternity for being Jews. So anyway,
it's the sideways speak that, but saying stuff like that always pisses me off, because it's that sideways speak that allows you to say, no, I like that country that the Jewish people are supposed to like, that I like for the specific political and theological reason that I have, that has nothing to do with actually liking them, because it's for that purpose, through which, when I say, as James Broadbent, I want Jews to go to hell, that is part of the plan of, like, You know what I'm saying? I can say that I like Israel because that's part of the thing where the Jews will go to hell after.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that's been a long tangent, but I will circle around to say that I think that what's great about, and even though again I'm not super into cringe humor, and I do have a little trouble watching the Borat segments sometimes because they are so cringy, but I think what's so important about that is what he is brilliant at is getting people to just say this shit in an uncoded way.
Yeah.
He's, because they're dog whistling and saying stuff in coded ways all the time, and getting them to just come out and say it and say the quiet part out loud, I think is so, so clever. And even though I find Ali G much more watchable and adorable and charming, the Borat segments are really, really where he gets to the meat of it. Yeah.
I remember there was this is a Bruno skit, but he was talking to the gay conversion preacher, which is like one of those ones. As soon as you see the name pop up, you're just like.
That I will say, like that segment where he was getting this guy to go, but can you eat chocolate desserts? And the guy, like
if you want to eat chocolate in glorification of homosexuality,
well, just the way he said it, that's a nish. but just saying, like, yeah. Oh my god, yeah. Just the way he gets people to like randomly spout bad German.
but just the fact that like it sort of so exposes this person who's like, if this thing is being done in relation to gayness, then you can't do it. If you're eating chocolate in relation to gayness, then you don't do it. It's like, why are you even thinking about chocolate?
Right, and I will also say something that, and I want to head this off by saying that I think that the all homophobes are secretly gay thing is really tired and obviously not true and problematic, but I don't think all homophobes are secretly gay, but I do think the people who view homosexuality as a temptation that must be constantly resisted are probably at least a little gay.
I'm gonna just say this right now, as like a straight guy, like my whole life.
Have you ever felt like super tempted by the dick?
That's
like
what
you ever
I'm
see
saying.
a dick and you're like, Jesus help me! I just I want to
just didn't matter. And so when these preachers have the logic of like when you hear like you must resist the sin of the gay man in the flesh, and it's just like. But it's not an issue. It's not a right? Because I'm just not into it.
And what I loved was when Bruno offers to give him a lap dance, and he says, "Would you get turned on if I gave you a lap dance?" And he says, "No, because it's against the word of God." And he claims to be straight. He says he's not a converted gay. He's
not because I don't want to do it, but because the rule, them's the rules. That's why I'm not agreeing.
Right? Yeah. So I mean that segment, and I will say in Bruno's defense, as much as I have some issues with the way that character operates and with the way some of those sketches operate, I remember, and this is outside of the context of the LAG show, but he was on, I think this was in promotion for the Bruno movie. He was on the Howard Stern show. Howard Stern said something like pretty stupid and homophobic, and it was the in the sort of like, like all gay guys are gonna take any cock that comes their way or whatever. I don't remember the specifics, but it was kind of dumb and homophobic, and I feel like he was saying it to Sacha Baron Cohen, who is straight, with that sort of wink wink nudge nudge, thinking he would go along with it. And Sacha, in character as Bruno, basically shut it down in a way that was really funny, but also shut it down and was like and made Howard Stern look stupid. And I think that even though he does lean into a lot of these gay stereotypes, it's not lazy. I think he misses the mark a lot, but it's not lazy.
It's not like, exactly. It is smarter than a it has the like crassness of a jackass, but it is more cleverly concocted than I think a Michael Moore film or Michael Moore well, he had a TV show at one point where he also kind of did the shtick of like, I'm going, Michael Moore here, just a, average guy going out, blue collar guy going out to interview such and such, billionaire when he didn't expect it or something like that. Like that was usually a stick, ambush, a politician or something like that.
Right.
But the difference is, it's like, Sacha Baron Cohen is funny. Like, he is a very funny person.
And he's making these characters who serve specific purposes, and he's taking it to an extreme. And like, I get very surprised sometimes the degree to which people like. I think what was funny about the Andy Rooney bit. So he was Ali G interviewing Andy Rooney, and Andy Rooney was being a dick.
Yeah.
Like, he was, like, basically, so Ali G was saying, like, does you think? And Andy Rooney kept going, do you think? That's English. And I was like...
That was such a dumb thing. Like such a dumb old white guy, you know, like, you're going to speak our language, right? Like,
right, like, yeah, being the you know,
the pedantic guy, because that's what makes me right.
Right, and it was just really obnoxious. It's like, you know what he's saying, get the fuck over it.
Like...
and just kept interrupting to correct his grammar and just being a dick. Yeah. And then, like 2 or 3 sentences in, basically was like, I'm done, and canceled the interview. And it was literally because it was so bizarre, because Andy Rooney basically shut the whole thing down 2 or 3 sentences in, because Ali G didn't have perfect grammar. And I'm like, literally, you have people sitting there, like, putting up with the most insane, over-the-top ridiculousness from all 3 characters, and Andy Rooney couldn't handle him saying, does you think? I'm like, dude.
Don't you think it's a bit racialist?
Yeah. Oh God, I loved what was where he was talking to somebody and said something about like how it was racist that they only cast black people as slaves in movies. And it was Gore Vidal. He was talking to Gore Vidal, and Gore Vidal said, well, there weren't any white slaves. And he goes, well, isn't that a bit racist?
Yes. That is the point.
Gore Vidal, the interview with Gore Vidal was so funny, because Gore Vidal started out looking so uncomfortable. Like, he's sitting there looking like a stuffed corpse. Like just looking like he's about to rocket out of his chair. And yet he ended up having just this very pleasant interview with him, and he kept getting him mixed up with Vidal Sassoon and asking about him cutting hair and stuff. And he was just like, oh, you know, I've met him. He's a very nice man, but no, I don't cut hair.
So going back to the gay conversion preacher.
Yeah.
So, like, there's always these sort of quotes that, like, these type of, like, I just want to say grifter preachers, like, you know what I'm saying? They're always, like, saying stuff where it's just like, that didn't make sense what you just said, or that's not like related to what you're talking about. So, you know, Bruno's like, so if Freddie Prinze Jr. came in here right now and was crawling on all fours, he wouldn't, you know, do anything. And the preacher's like, the book of Job says that Job would not put any worthless thing before his eyes, and that he would not look upon a virgin.
Right.
It's just like, what? That didn't even answer the question.
He doesn't say,
he doesn't because I'm not gay, I'm just not attracted to men, but you know what I mean?
Right, like, and I mean, obviously, like, anybody who, I mean, not everybody, but you would think that somebody who thinks that doing gay conversion is a good idea or something worth trying to do is somebody who, you know, who views being gay as a temptation that should be resisted, and somebody who was genuinely straight would, like, you know, just like, I mean, and again, obviously there are lots of heterosexual homophobes and probably some heterosexual people who do conversion therapy, but that particular attitude of, you know, you shouldn't be gay because it's wrong.
Yeah, this Bible verse, this rule says that I can't do that, so I'm not.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But specifically the idea of, like, this Bible passage, which is, like, it doesn't even answer the question. Like, it's just like, oh, if Freddie Prinze Jr., this attractive guy, came in, well, my answer would be Job. There's a Bible story where Job doesn't put any worthless thing before his eyes. It's like, what? That doesn't answer anything. And he wouldn't look upon a virgin. Freddie Prinze Jr. isn't a virgin. What are you talking about? And they just sort of move on. But just like the fact that was just like the way that guy answers that in such a tone deaf, like, religion is my answer, but there's no actual content or anything that actually, like, is directly answering what he's saying, which makes it plain where it's just like, you're not even thinking about this. The idea for you is just, I don't need to think gay thought because this thing says gay is not real, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, I had a note in here that said, Seth Rogen was one of the writers in the show. That threw me off.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Interesting. I'm assuming once it got onto HBO when it was the American edition.
I think that's what I was watching.
Very interesting.
Then I saw like Daryl Gates being interviewed. Another name that made me go like, wait, wasn't that the guy like the leader of like the LAPD in like the late 80s, early 90s? Like during when shit was really bad.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things like, whoa, how'd you get him? And I love the beginning of the Ali G episode, the second one, where he says, there's people that ain't even seen a black person before. Hello.
Yeah.
That cracked me up so goddamn hard when I saw it. When I first saw it, like that's the shit that like made me a fan.
Well, and apparently there was, I want to say it was the Oscars one year where he was there in character as Ali G, and he made some joke. I don't remember. It was something like, why wasn't I invited? Is it because I'm black? And apparently Dave Chappelle encouraged him to do that. But the problem was that a lot of, like, the joke works if you are familiar with the character. But if you don't know who the character is and you don't know that the character is supposed to be a white kid, it just looks like he's basically doing minstrelsy.
Well, and I also kind of thought about it like, because he does look like a light-skinned, like, black guy. Although, like, he couldn't. You know what I mean? For these like random people who don't know who he is.
He's racially ambiguous enough. Or, I just remember, like, though, the Andy Rooney segment right at the end, he says something about, is it because I'm black? And Andy Rooney looks at him and goes, you're black? You're black?
But I think it's specifically, like, I think there's, with all these characters, there's an extra mix on it. Like, if it was just this white guy, like, as far as at least an American show goes, if it was just this white guy doing a black voice, like, I think that would be one thing, but it's the added extra of, like, the otherness of him being British. So, like, these American people being interviewed, like, they don't know how to take this guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, and the same thing with Borat. It's like if you had an American person, just being as horribly offensive as Borat is, they would get shut down a lot sooner. If for no other reason than the people would be like, oh God, I don't want to look bad, by associating with this guy. But because he's a foreigner, people feel like they have this sort of like, oh, well, I'm just being nice to this poor ignorant foreigner who doesn't know any better.
And also this show's like, they assume this show's going to be on some like Afghani station somewhere in the Middle East.
This like little tiny, watch this? Well, this little tiny little tiny Kazakh news station.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now I do like the Bruno segments at some points when they're like, when they take down the fashion industry.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh God. This was so painful, but so good. There's a segment where he's with the two guys doing this sort of like, this like trash entertainment commentary show that I feel like was really big in the early 2000s.
Yes, on E! And
where they're looking at pictures of different celebrities, and he's just telling them like, be meaner, and like, or they'll say like, oh, I think she looks nice, and he's like, no, be mean, and so they're like, oh, she looks like a trash heap, and just instantly switching, and then they show Paris Hilton.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh.
And they're like, oh, she looks so tacky. She's such a whore. She's such a bitch. And he goes, guys, the Hilton's on this. And they're instantly like, what a lady. She is the epitome of just everything that a woman should be. And just the absolute hypocrisy of it.
And I remember there being one interview with this one fashion designer where they're like, oh yeah, it was like this fashion designer where they were wearing like trash bags or something like that. And they're like, oh, so you have, these people wear the clothes for poor people. But then, it's like, yeah, that's right. And, so this costs like, 400 something. Oh, so you take the poor people's clothes and then you make it so they cannot buy them.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah. And, it's
which is literally what happens. Like,
I remember that just being like, oh, are you supposed to say that?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, and that is something very strange in fashion that does seem to be the case, is that like clothes that poor people wear out of necessity then trickle up. Well, like baggy clothing, like in hip hop fashion was because you had kids who couldn't afford new clothes and had to wear oversized clothes out of the secondhand box.
Yeah, and partially jail culture of like people.
And then like, you got like ripped jeans and flannel, and then all of a sudden like wealthier people are looking at that and going, oh, that looks cool, and then now you pay like $300 for a pair of ripped up jeans.
And it's not that like fashion isn't art and all that fun stuff, but it's like there is that like direct exploitation element of it. We've been recording this, and Evan has been taking pictures of me.
I'm taking pictures. Yeah, I've been taking pictures of Donut in your lap, and you got to put at least one of them on Patreon. So I want to briefly touch on the differences, because I watched all of the third season and a little bit of the second season. The second and third season, the HBO seasons, are very similar to each other. Very different from the Channel 4 season. And it is funny that the Channel 4 season looks a lot more polished. Like the first season of the show that's on Channel 4 in Britain looks a lot more polished. The camera work, like they have this big stage. The quality of the, like literally just the camera quality is better. The film quality is better. It's very, it just looks a lot more professional. And then the second and third seasons that are on HBO almost look like a public access cable show. Like they're kinda,
and the thing is, it's like that works to the advantage
and it works.
Of what it's doing.
It works. I don't know if that was an artistic choice or if it was literally just they like blew the budget on getting him to America. But for the Borat show, it works especially because the whole joke is it's this like crappy little, Kazakh TV station. And then the Bruno segments, it looks like that shitty bottom of the barrel entertainment show that you got in the early 2000s, or frankly even shows that weren't shitty in bottom of the barrel. Like I've watched some old Queer Eye, like the original Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, and it's crazy how dated it looks.
It is so funny, just like the world of reality TV in general, to like look back on that like 2000s like the wasteland of that entertainment of just like, oh my god, this was all like so much of it was bad.
I used to watch a lot of makeover shows on TLC in the early 2000s, and it was always like this like, oh, you have to wear jeans with a flared leg and low, like your jeans have to have a low waist and a flared leg, and if your jeans don't have a low waist and a flared leg, you're trash.
Oh, what are you doing?
And you look like shit. And now, of course, everything's high waist and skinny legs, but it was like, obviously, you idiot, they have to be. And Bruno just reminds me so much of those like shitty like what not to wear type of I'm coming really hard for these shows, but they were just they were really awful.
Bad, and ultimately, what were they even doing?
Well, because the thing is, like with what not to wear, and a lot of these are like there were a lot of these where the people getting made over were genuinely dressing horribly. Like they were genuinely people who needed help because they were wearing completely inappropriate, terrible clothes, and it was affecting their lives. But instead of saying, hey, here's a way to like, polish this up a little bit and be more appropriate, it was just, you're entirely wrong. Here, take this completely new wardrobe that has nothing to do with your actual fashion sense or anything that you want to look like or your lifestyle, and just wear this completely alien wardrobe and look completely different.
That you might not be able to afford.
And they always and kind of what pissed me off too was they always made the women get really short haircuts, and it was this attitude of like, obviously you can't have long hair, obviously. And the woman who hosted that show had long hair. She had long hair. She was allowed to have long hair. But every other woman on that show was like, obviously long hair is shitty and you can't have it. And they would make them get these really short haircuts. And it's like, the only reason you're doing that is to make her look as different as possible.
Right.
So that was a weird long tangent about TLC makeover shows. But yeah, basically that's just what Bruno gives me flashbacks to.
There was one interview that I thought was just hilarious where he's talking to the preacher. He says, you ain't never got a hoe pregnant. You ain't never got a hoe pregnant.
Oh, and that was another one where the priest just says, it was a Catholic priest.
Yes!
So it's like, obviously, but he just was like, this is over.
Because he used Connie's, or is it because he used firing blanks?
And the priest just instantly was like, this is over. We're done.
This interview is over. I was like, I just love those moments of just like finding what that person's limit was.
Yeah. Because apparently for Andy Rooney, the limit is African-American vernacular. Well, I guess it's not African-American vernacular English because he's
or British, just slang.
Yeah, just like anything that is not... anything that is not the King's English, and also like again like
that didn't even feel like that much of a border, like, to cross, because you think about it, it's like, oh, the joke is that he's asking a preacher if he's had sex before.
I mean, a Catholic priest.
Yes.
Yeah.
The joke being, of course he hasn't, you idiot. Like, that would be a dumb question to ask. But just the fact that he is so offended by the idea of you asking him if he's had sex, and he's like, this interview is like, he doesn't laugh at him. He doesn't go like, what? That's an absurd question to ask. He's like, this interview is
right,
over.
Especially
like,
because
right.
It's not like, I mean, yes, obviously Ali G's an idiot and it's taken to be a stupid question, but like, there are Episcopal priests who, you know, dress in very similar clerical garments who can get married. And so it's like, it's not the most offensive question in the world.
Oh, and then he asks, he asks another person who's at a pro-life rally. He says, or what we should call an anti-choice rally, but
right. It's like, how do you, like, basically he tells them, like, don't knock it till you tried it. I didn't like Burger King until I tried a flame-oiled Whopper.
And, you know, that comes to a point that I always, like, have about these things, which is just, like any guy who's at these, you know, pro-choice rallies is like, who are you to even say that, like, you can't even have an opinion on this, much less the one where it's like, I just happen to think that women shouldn't have a choice, and that fits in with feminism, right? Yeah. You know, but just specifically, so he interviews this one guy. He says, you know, no one should have abortions because personally, I would wait till marriage. And, you know, the guy cuts him off. He says, you know, Ali G's like, wait, does that mean you're a virgin? He goes like, well, yes. And he just goes,
he just giggles. Yeah. I love that. I loved it because it seemed so involuntary. It wasn't like a ha-ha. It was just that little, like...
now, like, I would say, like, you know, normally I'd be like, oh, come on, you know, dude probably, you know, feels like a loser, you know, he's like...
No, that guy was proud of being a virgin.
Yeah, but it was like, well, just the idea of, like, laughing at this guy on TV, you know, like, that feels a little bit... But at the same time, no one told you to advocate against women's rights to something you literally will never get to experience firsthand.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
like,
not only are you not going to need to have an abortion, but you also probably won't ever need to pay for an abortion since you're not getting pregnant.
Like, I was thinking about, you know, in terms of some of the saucier and stuff that he catches, where it's like, oh, you know, I enjoy the pop of the moment of like, oh, you know, the redneck dude saying like, you imply that I'm gay, you gonna lose all your teeth, boy, so you better watch what you say. Watch what you say. Like, it did that whenever we were just going like, you better watch what you say.
That was the thing, because I thought at first, like, the guy was just sort of, you know, like, whatever, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, shit.
You better be real careful what you say.
Yeah,
I was like,
at first the guy just seemed like kind of a big dumb doofus, and like, it was like, okay, whatever, and we started doing that, it was like, oof, because he hadn't, that was the thing, is like, I feel a little conflicted, or not really conflicted, I don't like it when Bruno basically aggressively sexually harasses a guy, and then acts like the guy's homophobic for not liking to be hit on.
Yeah, like, in that one in particular was like, oh, what type of guns do gay people like, would you recommend? And the idea being like, oh, you would be a person who would fire off gay,
and so that was
guns
like,
as a gay person, right?
Yeah,
like,
and
the joking implication.
Right,
there.
that wasn't sexual harassment, that was like, and, you know, obviously I feel like anybody would get irritated at saying, you know, anyone would be a little irritated at, oh, you think I'm gay? No, I'm not gay, and then have the person keep insinuating. Like, that would be irritating. But jumping immediately to violence
like
is like, oh,
so
okay.
offended by, like, even being associated. You
right, know? Yeah, that's like an instantly, like, okay, you think that being gay is the worst possible thing that somebody could be called.
I will say, with the guys, with the spring break dudes, where he's like, I want you guys to be really intense and say, like, send the
oh
TV.
God, the little guy who was just kind of like pumping his arms. I don't know how to describe. He was like doing like a upper body only running man movement really fast, and it was, oh my God, that was so fucking funny. Like, all the others were kind of jumping around, and this one guy was just sort of like pumping both of his arms back and forth repeatedly, and it was so fucking funny. I don't know why.
The joke being is like, oh, you know, we're here for the Eurovision, you know, foreign TV thing for spring break, and, you know, we need you to say spring break with lots of energy, and the guys are giving like so much energy, but the idea is that he would end each part and be like, okay, could you give a little more energy?
Well,
you know,
and then of course,
underplaying how crazy they're being, you
and
know?
then he gets them to show off their butts, and they're all like all instantly like, you want to see my butt cheeks? cheeks, yeah, and they like take their pants down, they're like wiggling their butts, and then when he says, okay, say hi to Austrian gay TV, then they get mad, and it's like, did it not occur to you that gay men might watch this before he said it was for gay TV? Like, did it not occur to you that gay men might be enjoying you showing off your butt cheeks? Like, did y'all not realize he was gay? Like,
yeah, like, but that is one of the ones where it was like, okay, that wasn't nice.
I mean, I found that pretty funny. It was just like, because they were clearly just liking showing off, and then,
but being so, like, offended by the idea of, like, what? Gay people are gonna like it? Like, I'm getting flashbacks to the fucking...
It's like, you're college wrestlers and you just flashed your butt cheeks. Like, of course. You do realize that wrestling singlets are kind of like a thing in gay porn.
It flashed me back to that Eddie Murphy comedy special where he's like, oh, if there's any gay people in the audience watching my butt, don't look at my butt. Just like this soul aversion to the idea of someone thinking of you in a homosexual way that you have to point it out, and specifically, it's just calling that tension out that was so real at the time. And like I said, I was feeling sort of in a way of like, oh, is it cool to like, use these people or whatever, but I said, these type of people are more likely to be conservative anyway. And so in that vein, I'll take the conservative cop protecting argument by saying that, if they don't have any racism to hide, it shouldn't be a problem. If you've got nothing to hide as a bigot, it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
But, so that's how I feel about that. You can take that how you want. But, do you have any other notes you wanted to say about it?
It's interesting to see. I mean, this was basically Sacha Baron Cohen coming into his own. Like, he had been in things, but this show was him, really launching his whole thing where he, and what he was originally known for up through, I think, the Bruno movie. And then what happened to him, it's interesting because... and I guess, like, this will be sort of the arc of this season or whatever you want to call it of us talking about Sacha Baron Cohen is, he made his career, he made his reputation on being this, gotcha kind of character, like prank, whatever you want to call it. And he was also in movies, and then he became so recognizable that he couldn't do that anymore. Yeah. And then he became so successful that he could afford really good prosthetics, and now he can do it again, which is Who is America. So we'll get to that. But yeah, it's interesting. It's like the beginning and the present of his career is so full of this, and then there's that middle period where it was like
trying to figure out what to do
when he was basically just a Hollywood actor. I don't want to say just, but like he was kind of stuck being a regular famous actor because everybody could recognize him.
But he does grow his hair. Like, I remember even, like, in the early days of, like, knowing that here's this one guy playing 3 different characters.
He does look very different.
But yeah, like, how does he make him look like that, though?
And I will say, like, I think also, like, the extremeness of the characters is part of it because, I mean, Ali G having the skull cap and the goggles that he's wearing, the goggles, purpose, like, and the really silly facial hair,
and the different voices, like, so distinctly different.
Just in terms of them being different, I think them having like extreme speaking mannerisms.
Where it's just like, who is this guy? Why is he
the strong accents, and like, Borat's just got the strong accent. Ali G has the fake patois, and then Bruno has like this sort of,
he has like the Austrian,
he's got the Austrian accent on top of, sort of like over the top flamey gay, I don't know how to say gay speech, but
what is that word? Not effervescent, but it's just like flamboyant. Like, yeah. So, and it's like these very distinct things done on purpose to make it so that like these are such different characters.
Right, you're not gonna get them mixed up with each other.
Yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see. This is the sort of brainchild of the show, and I feel like it is still a show that we can go back to.
Oh yeah, enjoy. I mean, it's still got a lot of value to it, and yeah, I guess it's interesting also that I think one thing I appreciate it is that it's not all about skewering rotten people. Because there are rotten people who get exposed and skewered, but there's also perfectly nice people who, you know, getting to sort of watch them
react to him.
Like, that chicken guy, the veterinarian, like, it was just so funny. I will say, and this was, I think, a sketch that I saw back in college, because for years they're like, why is it wearing that? Like the chicken with the furry legs. Like, like he's, you know, like, why is it wearing that? Like that I still, like, some of our neighbors have fuzzy chickens, and I think of that every time I see them.
It is a weird looking chicken.
He's got pants.
But yeah, if you don't have any notes left, you know, I think we can wrap this up.
Yeah, and I did sneak one more picture of Donut.
I'll probably upload it to the Reviewanew on Patreon. So if you want to support us, you can head over patreon.com/Reviewanew. You can see every other episode that we put out, as well as if you want to support us by requesting an episode, you can go to Ko-fi.com/Reviewanew podcast. I think it should be Reviewanew podcast or just Reviewanew. Type it in, both of them. You know, you'll see it eventually. And you know, so you can support us and request for a movie for us to review. It's only $30 for that.
And you can see Donut.
And you can support us for $5 on the website, patreon.com/Reviewanew, and get to hear every other episode early before we put them up. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, go do all that. Get with it. Act like you want it. I'm going to be uploading these to my, my RC streaming channel, where I'm going to be uploading other, like, snippets and stuff like that, since a lot of people seem to be enjoying that channel and how I'm uploading stuff over there. So, you know, I hit the link tree. You know what I'm saying? Get with it. Act like you want to support the show. You know, support the Rapid Critic Show. All that fun, sexy stuff. And until next time, you know, I'm DJ.
And I am Evan. And this is Donut. I'm Donut.
And wah wah wee wah.
All right, I gotta go, because I think my wife wants me.